Hello, DevOps friends! How are you? Welcome to Full Stack. No, wait! Oh, this is so ingrained. Welcome to Monospace Mentor, which is me, Jochen. Hey, Full Stack Live has been my stream name for quite a while, and it still sticks in my brain, obviously. And yeah, so how is everyone? Happy Tuesday. I did manage, even though a little bit delayed, to start a stream because I'm going to do some front-end and maybe also back-end coding for my company's managed hosting platform. I think I will do a little bit of Rails coding, actually, because I had an idea and I'd at least like to try it out, and we can see where we will end up. Hey Balthazar, good morning, how you doing? So yeah, I'm going to do some Rails coding. We will try and extend the hosting dashboard for our customers to also manage resources. So far, the dashboard has a few resources hard-coded. For example, every website needs a database, so the dashboard offers you to add a database. But in order to add more kinds of services, like, for example, we are thinking about adding an object storage to our hosting platform as an alternative to the file-based storage we already run. We should basically have something more generic instead of hard coding every single service that we're going to allow, because this will also make it much easier to do usage-based billing, which we don't really do at the moment. And in order to track which resources get used how much, then we need to have something more generic in place. And that's what I'm going to do. Eloquent Babbage over on Owncast. Hello, good afternoon. How's it going? Balthazar said perhaps the old name slipped out because you're going to be doing some full stack programming. Makes sense. Maybe it was just thinking about Ruby coding, which I haven't done in quite a while. Yeah, but hey, I've been live streaming for 7 years now. It's no wonder that the old name has stuck for quite a while. All right, so what else is new? I got something nice today that I'm going to use in the server room, our DevOps community of practice, which is a JetKVM. The JetKVM will be attached to the PubMox server that's in my shelf here, and that will allow community members to actually set this box up for our community to become our PubMox, our public Proxmox instance. I intend to make this a kind of micro-internship. What do I mean by this? First, let me have some coffee. Okay, so how did I get to micro-internship? I mean, I could have set this up myself already. It's been hanging around for 2 or 3 weeks now. But okay, I already assumed that by your greeting, hello sir. I thought, well, that might be Moo, and thanks for confirming. It's a Moo. So yeah, I could have set this up myself and said, okay, here it is, have fun. And then I thought, why not make this a community workshop? And where we get together and set it up as a workshop. And then I thought we could even go further than that and let someone from the community set this up, ideally a pair, 2 people who take care of this in collaboration. And I'd simply give them the specifications, what the end result is supposed to look like. And then those two people would set up basically a worksheet where basically they plan what they're going to do, what needs to happen in order to get this thing online, to get this thing, say, connected to a VLAN here on my network, to make it available to the community via Tailscale, things like that. And I would take a look at what they come up with, and of course be available to guide them if there's any questions or if there are any issues. And then we would do the community workshop, but not led by me, but by the two people who set up the concept and prepared everything. And it would be up to them to basically present what they're going to do, and then implement it with the participation of everyone else who's taking part in the workshop. And then we would have a working Proxmox instance that the community would be able to use. And then it occurred to me, it doesn't even stop there, because of course there's also day 2 operations, which means the ongoing maintenance and operations of the server. There might be maintenance things to do, server updates, stuff like that. Maybe there will be some kind of incident that takes down the box and someone needs to communicate that. And I thought, that's pure ops work. That's ideal for someone who hasn't been in a job where they would do operation stuff like this, where they had to do incident management, incident communications to the customers, i.e. the community. So building a team of PubMox administrators who would do the ongoing maintenance and the whole stuff that needs to be done. I mean, I won't put you on call, but at least on an availability basis, having people who take care of this would be, I think, a very interesting experiment. And so yeah, that's why I'm not calling it a single setup or even a community workshop. This is basically becoming an internship where someone who hasn't been exposed to operations practices can be on a non-life-threatening system and with a well-meaning community. And so I think this would be ideal for someone who'd like to experience operations practices firsthand. What do you think? The Neverworld joining us, asking, have you used Cloudflare? It's amazing, I can host from home without exposing port 80. I haven't tried it yet. I'm not using Cloudflare myself, but it's one of these services that makes these things pretty easy, because yeah, they basically proxy traffic to you without you having to expose your port 80 to the public directly. Solidev joining us saying, oh, that's an interesting idea, glad to hear it. Bethesda says, I haven't personally, but I love it and have been wanting to play with it. I currently use Cloudflare to proxy stuff from my home infra to the web, but I've been doing good old-fashioned IP allow listing to only allow Cloudflare to hit those IPs. Makes sense. I do actually expose my home router to the internet, trusting that it's set up properly and that all the security services do what they're supposed to do. But the PubMox system, of course, will require making a whole network available, and that's not going to work with just port forwarding or something like that. So that's where Tailscale is going to come in, where community members will be able to get Tailscale access to a dedicated VLAN here in my home. And so they will not only be able to access the Proxmox instance itself, but also all the VMs and things like that. So yeah, I'll have to write this up That's the rough concept, and I'm in the process of writing up a blog post announcing this. And then how this is going to work is I will announce this, and then there will be basically an application phase where community members at the gold level will be able to apply to do this internship, and then I'll pick 2 people who are going to do this. The rest of the community can still, of course, participate during the planning and during the implementation phase. We'll do an online workshop where everyone can participate. The reason why I'm going to limit this to members at the gold level is because of the cost. Not only the hardware cost of the server itself, but also I will have to have a paid Tailscale subscription to add people to the Tailscale net on this scale, and there will be additional costs related to other stuff as well. And I think even at the membership fee of a gold membership, and you can look that up at the serverroom.sh, I think it's still going to be a good deal, because it's not only going to be this Proxmox instance that will be available to gold members, but it's also all the events and other perks we have already in the server room, our DevOps community of practice. So yeah, that's that. But for today, I'm not going to work on any PopMox stuff. I'm going to do some Ruby coding. Let me get this prepared. And I guess I should probably also make sure that my dot files are up to date so I don't get confused. That was an update. I've been doing quite a few things to my dot files lately. Oh, and one of the things that I've added recently was auto-installing all the tools that I usually have on my workstations. So that's nice to see this getting automatically installed when I run chez moi update. So Dev's doing some co-working. Love to see it. I did consider doing a co-working stream today, but I decided to make it a participatory coding stream. Homebrew bundle was deprecated, so I guess we can remove that. I'll do that while this is running. I'll do it in the background. That's the brew file. And done. We're also almost done installing stuff here. I could keep this running on, in the background. That's why we are using Sage after all. So let me quit this, or put it in the background, detach from it, and we'll switch to our chef cookbooks, where we'll need a new branch. So we'll call this resource spike, because yeah, it's going to be some experiment where I have a bit of an idea how the whole concept is going to work, but not sure if this is going to stay. I'll have to try it out a little bit, so that's why I create a new branch that I might well get rid of later if the idea doesn't prove to be valuable. Or we'll turn it into a proper branch and merge request. So that's that. Now, I think I could use a shell on the side here. Dev says, I find putting items on a list helpful, even if I don't follow the list too closely, as it helps me remember things I need to do and prioritize all the ones that spring to mind. And by putting them on a list, it frees up my short-term memory to then recall from storage other things that need doing. Makes perfect sense, and this is very similar to how I do things. At the beginning of the day, I write down what I'd like to achieve, at least the most important milestones. Many people keep things like little note cards and things like that they write stuff down at the beginning of the day, or maybe a page on in a notebook for the day with their most important tasks. So yeah, making these little lists doesn't really take a lot of time or effort, but they can help keep staying on track and doing the things that need to be done, instead of getting distracted and sidetracked by other stuff that in the end then will drown out the more important things. And it's always frustrating at the end of the day to realize, okay, I've done all kinds of things, just not the ones that I wanted to do. So I haven't done Rails stuff in quite a while, so I'll have to get used to that again. But first of all, let me get my notes out. I sat in the garden yesterday and did a little bit of doodling, design doodling. Let's see if this still makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. Okay. Alright, okay, so what I came up with, how do I visualize that ideally? Let me think. We're going to run an ad shortly anyway for 30 seconds, so maybe I'll just attach my tablet and show you what I came up with in drawing. We'll need a new window, and I'll have to share screen. That. Let me make sure this works. Oh yeah, it doesn't, okay. Okay. All right, so waiting for the ad to end. Okay, I think we're back. So what I've come up with is, if I want to manage resources, we'll need to attach them to the existing objects that we already have. One of the objects that we have is a cluster. And the other object that we already have is a website. And of course, websites are assigned to clusters. And now we'll have Hey, stay focused over on YouTube. Welcome. If you want to manage resources like, for example, an object storage, that will have to be implemented as a resource. But there might be also an abstraction where the resource is a storage volume, and there's actually a resource provider that will manage all these resources and also, as the name implies, provide them. Hey, stay focused. I'm working on an idea that I had to extend our managed hosting customer application so that we don't have any more hard-coded resources like databases that get assigned to websites, but have something generic that can be extended with all kinds of stuff that customers will be able to add to their websites. I'm using the example of an object storage because up until now we've only been providing them with file-based storage, and that's more or less hard-coded into the system. If we want to add more and more services to that, this is going to get unwieldy quite quickly, and so I'm working on an idea or on a design that allows us to manage arbitrary resources and not only provide them to our customers, but also, for example, have them be automatically provisioned. So if a customer hits the button in their dashboard, something kicks off in our infrastructure that actually sets up, say, a storage volume or a database instance or something like that, and reports that back to the system, and the system then basically just hands out the resource details, like, say, host names or stuff like that. Give me just a second, I need to acknowledge an alert here. So yeah, we'll have the resource provider, and resources can either be connected to a cluster or can be connected to a website.
It's a Unix system. I know this.
Hey Luanate, how you doing? Thanks for the follow. So that's that. And then a resource might have different resource capacities. And by that I mean, for example, let's take a database as a resource. If we want to limit these resources, we can limit them from different perspectives. We can limit them on a count basis. For example, there can only be one database per website or something like that. That would be one kind of capacity, the number of websites, the number of databases. And then there can also be, for example, a limit in terms of storage. And so that's why I think it makes sense to divide resources into resource capacities. That we can then count. We can gather metrics on them, how many databases are there at the moment, how much storage do they take up, and things like that. That's another part. And let me see what else was there. Yeah, that's pretty much it. This here would be basically the scope. Oops. So is a resource scoped per cluster or per website? And let's simply draw the example of an object storage. So we'd have the resource provider. Let's shorten it to RProv. That's object storage. Basically something S3 compatible. The resource would be a storage volume or bucket. Why not use the established terminology and to call it storage bucket? Give me just a second while I take care of this. I'll be back as quickly as I can. And I'm back. Sorry for the interruption. And so yeah, I think with these three new objects in our design, I might already be able to model what I'm going to do. Snabel, hello, how you doing? So I think I'm simply going to do some creating of models. Rails generate model. Oh, that's actually... Oh, full of snowball, having a headache. Having had a headache yesterday, feeling better today. Happy to hear it. My son has been having a headache since a week ago, and my wife actually went to the hospital with him yesterday to get him checked, and they said, yeah, might be an infection that also caused his stomach sickness, and in turn he might have dehydrated a little bit, which has been causing his headaches. So make sure to hydrate. He's on ibuprofen now and getting lots and lots to drink. That also sounds like a migraine for the snowball. We first thought it would be a migraine with my son as well, but usually people don't have migraines for a whole week continuously. You learned a new trick, a neat trick how to initialize a 2D rotation matrix. Interesting. I would assume that's sorry about that. That's a little bit tricky to demonstrate in chat, but if you can describe how you do it, feel free to do so. I'm always curious about these things. Linear algebra was also always my favorite thing in maths. I was interested in 3D modeling and animation for forever. Since I got a C64, I was amazed at, probably Elite, the game, probably did that trick and got me interested in 3D graphics. So, let's... No, I won't think about the terminology too much. This is definitely going to be just a spike, so we'll be able to throw this away. If the naming turns out to be quite off, then that's easily repaired. Let me see. Usually a rotation matrix, GLSL, is created like this. Matrix, so it's a 2x2 matrix. Cosine, sine, minus sine, cosine. Okay. But one can get an almost correct one by doing this. Cosine A plus, and then a quadruplet, 0, 11, 33, 0. What? That's very different from the original. It's just a vector addition instead of all the trigonometry. And that's a viable approximation? Oh, so you're using the 22 by 7 approximation. Nice. And going back in chat, tension headache. Okay, yeah, we assumed that too, because Boyo does a lot of gaming on handheld stuff like his iPad, Game Boy, and things like that. So, yeah, it wasn't far-fetched at all to assume it might have been a tension headache. But even after giving him a proper back rub massage, things didn't improve. So it might actually have been the dehydration, because yeah, overall his playing and getting distracted, he might actually have forgotten to to drink completely. All right. But I don't see the connection. Okay, I'd have to basically evaluate the trigonometry here. How do you end up with the values 11 and 33? I'd also probably have to evaluate how the matrix that comes out of the second one compares to the original one. I'll do that after the stream. I will go back in chat and or maybe if you like, post it to Discord as well. 11 is about 3.5 pi, which is cosine A plus. Yeah, I'm not really sure how the wait, yeah, so 0 is going to be the first one that replaces cosine A. And, oh yeah, you have a cosine in front, so that's basically cosine A with no addition. Then you have the 11, which is 3.5 that, which is just a phase shift basically, and you'll get actually the yeah, that's 11 must be the replacement for sine A. 33 is shifted even more, which gets us to minus sine A, and then again we'll have cosine A because that's simply cosine A plus 0. Yeah, that's some stuff that you probably would have seen in games like Elite as well, or maybe in Doom, where you'll get much cheaper evaluations for transformations than using trigonometry, where for especially in the DOS days, you didn't even have an FPU that could do these things. So this makes much more sense. I mean, you'd have to have a cosine table, but apart from that, yeah, you could do just the additions here, and that's it. Number of bytes is important, yeah. If you want to do 256 byte demos, which still blows my mind. The x87 FPU, yeah, and I guess by the time Doom rolled around, that was 486 era. So there would have been an FPU built in, right? But for 386, you wouldn't have an FPU by default. You'd have to have a 387. And I'm pretty sure that Elite even was much earlier than that, and running on older microcomputers that definitely did not have an FPU. So you would have to have these tricks built in. Beth is saying, another small tangent, but there's a lively discussion of Kubernetes alternatives on Hacker News starting yesterday. Lots of love for Podman Systemd and Quadlet going around. Interesting. Even though I don't see the direct connection between... I do love Podman myself, let me prefix that, and Balthazar knows that. Because I did write a blog post on monospacementor.com about Podman just a little bit earlier. And What I don't see is how Podman alone, or even combined with Quadlet, can be a real alternative to Kubernetes, because of course Kubernetes does much more than simply spawn containers. Starting with the orchestration part, where I can actually tell Kubernetes, okay, I have 2 nodes, run this container on each of them. And since Podman doesn't have anything that goes beyond the single host border, then I don't see how you can actually replace or have an alternative to Kubernetes there just with Podman. Unfortunately, the Podman team said they won't add anything like swarm mode in Docker to Podman, so Podman will apparently never be something that's really going to be able to do orchestration on its own. I mean, you can always put it on top of Podman and use Podman as a container runtime, which is a sensible thing to do. Okay, the conversation is centering around I want to run stuff at home and I write Kubernetes manifests all day, but I don't want to run Kubernetes at home. That makes sense, especially if you just have a single host anyway, as even I have in my home lab server. I just have a single machine, and at the moment I'm using oh dear, what is it called? Now I'm getting confused with all the names. Portainer. And Portainer, of course, just is a UI on top of Docker or Podman. And if that's all you need, then Kubernetes is definitely overkill. And in that case, Podman is actually quite the nice alternative. That's actually what my blog post was centered around too. Yeah, and the nice thing is with Podman pods, you can actually use Kubernetes manifests to run everything, but you don't need Kubernetes to run them. Podman alone will take care of that if all you do is run stuff on a single host. So that's actually quite great. I do love that too, because you don't have to get used to a new configuration file syntax. You can use the YAML that you need when you go beyond a single host with Kubernetes then anyway. So that's definitely something that I do like around Podman. But as I said, Podman says, if you want clustering and orchestration, then don't reinvent the wheel. Use a Kubernetes certified orchestrator like K3s or K0s. I haven't tried K0s yet, so I'll have to take a look at that actually. Commodore, interesting. I'll have to have a look at that too. I love how all these cloud-native things spawn stuff that is also usable at sub-web scale. So for self-hosting and home use and things like that. Okay, logging back in. So I wanted to create a resource. Resources need to have a name, right? And what else do they need? Well, of course, they'll need a resource provider. So that is going to be a ref. Oh, I haven't even installed stuff here yet. Yeah, that's a pretty new VM that I'm running stuff on here. Okay. I guess I'll have to run the backend services as well. Let's do that in a new tab. That's still happening in a container, isn't it? Wait, wait. Am I completely wrong? I'm in the chef cookbooks directory. What? That does not make any sense. I need to be in the dashboard repository. Oh dear. Let's fix that. Yeah, that makes no sense at all. I did not even realize I'm in the wrong one. Okay. So, let me see. Do I even have those cloned yet? No, doesn't look like it. So, let's see. GitLab repo clone. Start. Not authorized for GitLab. Okay. That's the key, but I should be able to get it from our... Yep, it's a different path anyway. Okay, here we go. New pane on the side. New tab to run my Docker container. It's still Docker Compose, I guess, so DC up should do the trick. Ooh, not available. What are we running here? That's Bluefin, actually, so brew install... Wait, Docker Compose. So... How did I do this on my workstation? I didn't install Docker, did I? Docker's available, just not for my user here. That's easy to fix. Would? Do I have to log in again? Let's catch up with chat. In the meantime, Beth says, I've moved my current home infra to using Git-based deployment with Portainer, which is a business edition only feature. It works fine, but Portainer's development direction seems a bit confused compared to my use cases. Commodore seems to lean more in the direction that I'm interested in. Yeah, I'll have to look at that. Doing a lot of research in what already exists, I think, about Blackbird, which is Bethesda's own project. One of the things that is itching my brain right now is how to manage secrets in a world where I don't own or control the upstream container image. I would like a world where secrets are only unencrypted in the context of the container's file system and not readily visible from the host or neighboring container stacks projects. Yeah, that would be ideal, I guess. Kronos joining us over on YouTube saying, nice setup, which distro are you using? I'm using Bluefin. Bluefin is basically an offshoot of Fedora Silverblue. that is pretty much geared towards developers, and I love it. I really, really love it. I guess I might have to log in here again simply to get access to Docker. I haven't used Docker in this VM yet, so I guess that's necessary. Yeah, let's give this a try. I mean, there isn't much running in this VM anyway. Let's see. Does it work? No. Still doesn't work. Is there var run docker sock, or does that have to be... Oh, it's there. Owned by root, however. Okay. Is that how it's supposed to be? Because even... Okay, there's a problem with the Docker group, I think, because this doesn't appear here. Oh, that is pretty strange. Let me check. I mean, I've been running Bluefin for so long that I do not remember anymore how I set up Docker compatibility with Podman. So I added, on my workstation, I'm added to the Docker group, and that actually appears. So maybe we need to reboot here. Might maybe have to do with systemd. Bethesda's right. I mean, using sudo is definitely an alternative. So if all else fails, I can always use sudo. On the other hand, this is always interesting for me because if I keep recommending Bluefin, these questions will eventually come anyway. For example, on the server room, on our forum. And I'd love to be able to answer those questions if someone actually uses Bluefin, especially with me saying it's developer-centric. Shouldn't be long before people ask why can't I use Docker. So let me see. Okay, that looks better. So the reboot did actually what it was supposed to do, and Docker does run. Okay, nice. So yeah, we do this. Yep. So Nagweed, thanks for the follow. Now, we need to restart the dashboard. Set developer environment. New pane to the side. Let's do a git pull just to make sure we have everything we need. Okay, that's good. Then new tab to do DC up. We might have to install Docker Compose. Let's do that. Brew install. I did not do that on my workstation though, because since I ran my brew bundle earlier, that would have been part of that. So there's still a difference to my workstation. Let me check that. Where does Docker Compose come from? It does come from brew. Huh. It wasn't installed earlier. Did I throw that out manually? Not realizing that I'll need it. Oh, very strange. Sometimes ads run at the right time. You didn't miss anything. I can never remember if I'll have to use my application container or if, since I switched to running the application on my host and everything else in container. So I guess that's a good time to actually check this out, which we should be able to see from our database configuration. Oh, we're just using DB host here, so let me check that in our .env, even if it's just the sample. So that uses Postgres as the DB host, which means the application itself needs to run inside Docker as well. Okay. Okay, that at least is the simpler mental model then. But we do have to copy .env sample to .env, and we might have to modify it, but I don't think it's strictly necessary. So let me check out tab 2 here. That looks good. The Lemon joining us. Hello. Welcome, welcome. Today we're doing a little bit of Ruby and Rails coding. I'm going to try a new object-oriented design edition. Okay, this is working. Do we have an application running? Looks like it. So we'll have to run setup over here. That's app bin setup. Oh, that's Okay, so let me show you a trick that I'm using with a few of my repositories, where I do have, as I can show you here, where I do have a bin directory with commands, but I don't want to add the bin directory in my local working directory. Say, I don't want to add a new entry to the path variable that says ./bin, because that is a bit of a security issue. What I do instead is I add .git /./bin, and that only works if it's actually .git /safe/bin. So all I have to do is create a directory in .git that says, okay, this directory is safe, and that then makes the path entry work. The path entry is basically add.git safe ... which gets us back to .git ... which gets us back to our working directory bin. And this only works if there is a safe directory inside .git. And that should make my app command work. Okay, nice to see it work. And so I should be able to do a app rake test, or ABE rake test suite. ABE just is basically run the bundle exec command here inside the container. So there are several test suites that are running here. Oh, that doesn't look great. Where are we failing? Okay, there's still stuff missing. I guess we didn't run assets precompile. I would have expected setup to take care of that. Maybe also missing yarn install, but let's do first ABE Rails assets precompile. Let's see if that alone fixes stuff. Less red. Good. Okay, setup is working. And that means we are ready to go. We can now do application container bundle exec Rails generate model. We'll call it resource, and resources are going to have a name. Still not completely used to typing Colmac on my split keyboard, but we are getting there. With every day I keep using the split keyboard instead of going back to one of my monolithic ones. I'm actually more successful at typing and doing less annoying mistakes. What else does a resource itself have? I mean, it's definitely going to have a connection to the resource provider. So I guess we'll call it exactly that, resource provider ID, but I think making this a reference should take care of it, if I remember correctly. Let's see what happens. It's reference, huh? Reference. Nope. Is my Rails so rusty that I don't remember correctly what this is called? Rails generate model so okay, give me just a second. References. Hey, okay. This it shows you how to do the above and also add DB indexes from the command line. Interesting. So it's references. Was close. Okay, and then we'll definitely need the resource provider itself as well. Resource provider, which also is going to have a name and many resources, so we don't reference them as attributes. And then we'll create a, see, I'm already deviating from my original design draft, because resource capacities doesn't really hit the nail there. I think it's a resource allocation where we say, okay, I want an object storage volume from the object storage resource provider, and I'd like to allocate, say, 100 gigabytes. And that's the resource allocation that will actually be built to the customer. So resource allocation will have some kind of capacity. And I guess that's going to be I mean, at first glance, we could make it a number and maybe add a capacity unit as well, but that will make it rather complicated for billing. Where we only have predefined steps. So people shouldn't be able to just buy 116 gigabytes of storage. It's either 100 or say 150. On the other hand, capacity should be a number, so it's comparable, because, for example, if we say, okay, you can go over your allocation, because we don't want to break your website, but then you will be billed for the overage, then we need to be able to compare the actual total capacity used with the capacity booked. So I guess we'll make it a number. I do not remember how this actually works. Let me see. Will we look it up? I guess we'll simply look it up here. Where are the Rails model? Let's go to the basics. Need to refresh my memory. Haven't done that stuff in quite a while. Attributes. String, date, boolean. What else do we have there? Where do we get? A cast type? Yeah, what available types are there? That is, of course, not referenced. Because it sounds like you need a separate products model for storing that information, whether it's an actual database table or a collection of enums or something. Yep. When we want to get into billing, there will have to be more models as well. There might be, as you say, a product or a plan, something like that, that we will then be able to tie to resources and yeah, exactly. If it's a table, so then we can make products inactive, we can grandfather them in and stuff like that. Yep. Okay, so turns out I go on a stream and don't even know how to tell Rails to create a number. Column. Is it just number? Yeah, the horror. The horror! Okay, so there is integer. And I guess, yeah, that's what I'm going to use here. So, integer. I'm not going to add a capacity unit here because I think that should rather be part of the resource model up here. So where we say, okay, for example, for an object storage volume, the unit is going to be gigabytes. And the resource allocation then simply has a number that correlates with that unit. We can then still add logic in the form of additional methods where we convert them into more human-readable units. Calf, hello. Good morning to you. For me, it's already rather late afternoon. 3:45. So let's keep it this way. And I guess we'll go and do generate migration, add capacity unit to resource with a capacity unit being, let's simply make it a string. All right. And then we'll migrate that in. Good. Of course, it needs to be AB. I shouldn't have had referenced resource providers if I only afterwards created. Huh. Okay. Yeah, that's actually good learning for me as well. So let's see, db migrate, go down here, and in resources we'll simply remove this. Changing read-only file. Oh, that was created inside the container, right? And see, that's why you don't use Docker Compose and instead use Podman Compose, because then you'll have rootless containers and won't have to fiddle around with file permissions. Calv asks what you're doing today. I'm working on our customer dashboard for our managed hosting platform, and I'm trying out a design addition to our data model, basically. What I want to do is I want to have a generic way to define hosting resources like databases, storage volumes, Redis containers, or whatever. And I want to be able to map that to our existing infrastructure. For one, to be able to collect metrics from our infrastructure, where we can actually see, okay, they booked 200 gigabytes of file storage, how much are they using at this time? We then will be able to even notify them when they are about to run out of capacity. And of course, it'll have billing consequences as well, because then we will be able to bill all these resources on a per use basis, or not on a per allocation basis as we do now. And yeah, so things will be much more flexible by having a generic way to define resources. So far, all the common resources we provide our customers with are hard-coded and have their own specific models in our data model. And having this in a more generic way will make us much more flexible in adding new kinds of resources as well. For example, at the moment, we don't yet offer any object storage. And before I add a hard-coded object storage data model here, I'd rather build this in a more generic way and be able to simply add a new database record about object storage, and that's it. Okay, so I can't modify these files, which is of course a pity. Can I force this? I can. Okay, that's good. So let me go over here again and see if this migrates now. Yes, it does. We'll have, of course, to add the relationship now manually. So let's go back, add a new attribute there, add resource provider to resource. Rails is actually able to parse that and know what's going to happen. And we'll just call this attribute resource provider because that's what the model is named as well. And as we just learned, it's called references. That's that. And let's do another migration. All right, so if we do a Rails C now, to get a simple Rails console, I should be able to create a new resource provider. Resource provider, create, name, object storage volume. What's the difference now between the provider and the resource itself? If I have the resource allocation as the actual thing that the customer buys, is there one abstraction too many? I don't think. Yeah, to put the question differently, will there ever be a resource provider that provides more than one kind of resource? We'll have MySQL hosts that provide databases, an object storage that provides object storage volumes at a specific capacity. We might be able to make this a little bit simpler than expected by simply having resources like an object storage volume and then a resource allocation that says, okay, we have a storage volume of say 100 gigabytes. A resource might have different limitations. For example, you can only have one object storage volume per website. And you'll have the limitation of the capacity that you've booked. So the resource will have a limitation. Can it be provisioned only once per cluster, once per website? And then we have the limitation chosen by the customer themselves, where they only book a specific capacity. I know. I just remembered that in my design sketches, I did have once also a resource class. Because if we make things very abstract, we might actually have a, say, MySQL database, but then we might have different classes, say, a single host MySQL database or a cluster-based database, which is more redundant and reliable, but also more expensive. So we will actually have more than one resource provided by a resource provider if the resource provider itself is more generic. Alternatively, we could of course have different resource providers. Say we have a single MySQL host provider and a cluster-based MySQL host provider, each of which then would simply have one resource, or those could then be resources. Ad coming up, so I'll shut up for half a minute. So this is exactly why I decided to do this experiment. To think things through a little bit and use you as my rubber ducks. Are we running an ad yet? It's a little bit annoying that Twitch shows me a countdown and then the ad doesn't even show up. And the ad manager tells me ad starting soon. First says, I shared some shader examples with you where I used the 2-day rotation trick. Off topic? No, it's not off topic. Nothing that's related to computer science can ever be off topic on my channel and on my community. And now we're running an ad. Okay, looks like we're back. Also, why does the stream preview say I'm offline? I don't think I'm offline, am I? No, I'm not. Good. All right. I guess it depends on definitions here, right? What is a resource provider? Of course, something that provides resources, but the question is how narrowly are we going to define what a resource provider is? Is a resource provider a very specific infrastructure piece, infrastructure component, such as a MySQL cluster, which would then be a different resource provider than a single MySQL host, built differently, and they would run their own resource provider agents that then set up databases and stuff when a customer books a new one. Because in that case, if the resource provider is specific, I don't think the resource itself is going to add anything on top of that. A MySQL cluster as a provider will always simply offer one single resource, and that's a database. Of course, as many databases as we let it to create, but the single resource would be a database. And it won't offer anything else. No, it doesn't offer any storage or cache memory. That being said, I guess that's going to be the difference between a plan and a resource. The resource is the database. And the database has a database host as attributes, a database username and password, everything that's necessary to access this database. So that's the concrete resource, more on an infrastructure level. And then we have an associated plan for that database. DevCon game, thanks for the follow. Then you have a plan that's associated with that resource, and that plan then limits the capacity of that resource. That then limits the storage capacity, for example. The database can only take 10 gigabytes or something. Oh, the Ruby drew you in. Okay. Well, good thing that I'm doing actual Ruby coding today, because I haven't in quite a while. Which actually shows, I'll admit, because I'm pretty rusty, even though we're talking about Ruby and not about Rust. But it's not so much about Ruby, actually, even though I'm working on my company's Rails application, which is the dashboard for our managed hosting platform. And that's why Linux is a huge topic here as well. I'm actually struggling with designing an extension of our data model. Python, get out of here! We are a pure Ruby shop. No, Python is definitely a great alternative to Ruby. Bethesda says, no, we're not. You're banned too, then. Oh, don't pout! Oh dear, I can't see myself ever getting this kind of dismissive in all seriousness. I'm just not zealous enough. DevCon says, yeah, Ruby was great when I used it, but had a few jobs doing PHP for some companies, and then I found Python and couldn't switch back. College kept trying to teach C# instead, though. Well, C# is definitely an interesting addition, because its approach or its philosophy is so very different from Python and Ruby. So it's definitely a nice addition in terms of different tools that you have in your toolbox. And PHP as well, of course. And well, we are about PHP here, at least in the sense that our managed hosting platform is specifically designed for running WordPress and Drupal. So we do PHP hosting, but everything that runs behind the scenes, including the customer dashboard, but also the whole infrastructure automation is based on Ruby. So I personally have to deal with Ruby much more than with PHP. DevCon Game says, yeah, C# isn't a horrible language to have in the box. PHP does buy you a Lambo, though. Yeah, well, if you do run a successful web framework and also cloud hosting company. Person asks, what color is your Bugatti? Depends on whom you ask. Style-wise, I think Bugattis are not for me. What kind of sports car would I buy if I ever had the money, which I won't? I guess I draw from my German roots and buy a Porsche. Defcon Games says terminal colors, of course, lime green, which is a great answer, as you can see from my stream design. Okay, yeah, it's not that simple, is it? Resource provider. Let's say, yeah, let's take the database thingy, because there's a little bit more variation than with object storage. Let's say we have a MySQL cluster database, and then we'll have a different resource provider that is that worked, and then we'll have a MySQL single host database. Okay. But as I said, in that case, if we are specific on this level, it's hard to have variation on the underlying level. Because what resource will a MySQL cluster database provide you with? It's always going to be a database, won't it? So in that case, we basically don't need a resource provider. Maybe it's more like a resource type. Resource type would be MySQL database. And then we'll have different resources. They're all MySQL databases, but some are cluster-based and some are not. That makes a bit more sense. And a resource provider would then probably be outside of the customer dashboard. That could actually be something that runs on a MySQL host and then receives a message, we need a new database because customer X booked one, and the resource provider creates the database and then returns all the details of that database, name and stuff, back to the dashboard. So the resource provider is the piece of infrastructure that reacts to a resource allocation, I guess. I think I'm constraining myself a little bit by doing this on the database level already. I think I'm going to write a text file first. I haven't done this design stuff in quite a while, so it's really something that I need to get back into. That's a muscle I haven't exercised in quite a while. So let's do resources.md. And in my hypothetical Rails console, I would do resource type. And I still can't type properly. Create. Oops, my SQL database. I would create a resource. That will name a single host MySQL database using the resource type MySQL database. See if I need to take care of this alert. Nope, that was transient. Was it? Yep, already resolved by itself. So we'll have to work with variables here. We'll call that MySQL database. And we call it single DB. That's this resource, which is a MySQL database, definitely. And then we'll have a cluster DB. Cluster based or HA. And then a customer would basically create a resource allocation. Of a resource. Say they want to save money, they'll get the single DB type, and the capacity would be, say, 10. Do we have a single capacity? Well, there might be several dimensions in terms of capacity. Maybe not in terms of databases. Yeah, well. Hey Fredberg, how you doing? Good morning. I hope you had a great start into your Tuesday. I did, because I had Monday off. Turns out the Irish are pretty smart. Even though Labor Day fell on Thursday last week, they didn't put the holiday there. They simply shifted it to Monday. So we got a long bank holiday weekend. which is much more useful than having Thursday off and then having to return to work on Friday if you don't take a vacation for it. Well, on the other hand, with the investment of a single vacation day, you can of course get a very long weekend that way too. There's always two sides to all things, isn't there? So I guess we'll have to account for multi-dimensional capacity constraints. Maybe not with databases. Depends on what we're going to offer here. Maybe I'll have to put a little bit more thought into what we are going to offer. Because when you start thinking along the lines of, well, maybe the customer wants to pick the actual database they'll get, like you do on Heroku, where you can say, okay, I want a MySQL database with this much RAM and this much storage. On the other hand, we could still make those separate resources, I guess, all listed under the common resource type MySQL database. That's more like a MySQL server then. But then you wouldn't have variations in the resource allocation anymore, because once you've picked your MySQL database with this amount of RAM and this amount of storage and stuff from the menu, then it's just, did you buy it or not? And an upgrade would mean switching from one resource to another, instead of staying with the same resource and just upping the capacity. Those are different approaches that I have not considered and compared yet. Turns out, data design coupled with product design is a complex thing. You know what? I think I'll have to grab my notebook and go back to my garden table and do some sketching. Because, yeah, if I don't make specific decisions, I don't think I'll be able to come up with a design. Can't build a design that will cater to all kinds of stuff if I only come up with that stuff later. At least I'll make things much too complicated. Yeah. I guess it'll be a little bit more time at the drawing board. This was still useful because it showed that I was going at it a little bit too simplistically. But one thing I can take away from this session is that I now have a working Docker dev environment in my streaming VM. And I guess I'll do a little bit of homework and return on Thursday And then we might be able to actually implement something. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Because weather is still nice outside, so I grab my e-ink notebook and do some doodling, and yeah, I guess I'll have to make some product side decisions that will then have consequences for the design of our data model. In the meantime, if you want to continue the conversation, if you have any questions about Linux, Ruby, other stuff like object-oriented design, data modeling and things like that, I invite you to join the server room, our DevOps community of practice, where we'll soon also have our own Proxmox instance for use of all of the community members, at the gold level at least. And we have a nice and friendly, inclusive forum. We do regular events. For example, the May Hangout is going to come up next week, I think. It's every second Tuesday of the month. And yeah, we'll hop on a call and simply have a casual chat. And that's always great time talking about all kinds of stuff. Most of it not even being tech related. So yeah, check out the serverroom.sh to find out more about our community. It's a membership community with membership fees, but I'm sure you will get your money's worth. All right, so with that said, I think we're going to wrap things up for today. As I said, I'll be back on Thursday afternoon, 2 p.m. Irish time, which at the moment is also 2 p.m. UTC, isn't it? Yeah. And, or no, it's not. Is it? Let me see. Nope, it's UTC +1. Okay. So, Thursday, 1 p.m. UTC. I hope to see you then, and until then, take care.